And welcome into Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network, also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's, along with the good folks at Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, our friends over at George Moore Chevrolet. If you're in the market for an automobile, head on over and see the folks over at George Moore Chevrolet. They've been around forever. Why is that? Well, they're good at what they do. They're good at providing service, upkeep on vehicles, you name it. George Moore Chevrolet. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. That is Graham Marsh in for Denny Thompson this week. Feels like it's been a while, Graham, since we've done this. Spring football is in the rearview mirror. The orange and blue game is in the rearview mirror, and the transfer portal is back open for both football and basketball. Before we dive in, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I had a question. You were saying George Moore has been around forever. They have been. They do fantastic work. But have they been around as long as that sheet of paper for Southeast Orthopedic Specialists?
This sheet of paper, I was trying to think, and honestly, year 5? Year 6 for the same sheet of paper.
That sheet of paper is older than my career at 1010XL.
It's interesting when you look into my mailbox, my famous mailbox here at the 1010XL World Headquarters. This piece of paper does not look like any other piece of paper in that mailbox. It is much more faded than anything else, but this has lasted the test of time. Now I think we're in year 5 or year 6. We're in year.
Was Jim McElwain the coach when that piece of paper was printed?
It was probably either latter stages of McElwain or beginning of Mullen. Yeah, latter of McElwain or beginning of Mullen. It's been a long, long time.
That is awesome.
So we understand now year 3 for Billy Napier, at least on the spring circuit, is in the rearview mirror. The orange and blue game last week. Obviously, everybody wanted to go see DJ Lagway. First and foremost, thought the crowd was great, man. They hadn't announced, 48,000 at the Swamp. I guess that's what happens when you put it back on Saturday afternoon as opposed to the Thursday night or Friday night experiments. I used to love the orange and blue game as a kid. Hopefully it remains on Saturday, but it was good to see a good crowd out there last week.
It was. I think there's just so many fans. There's so many out-of-town fans that Thursday is just not realistic. You're not going to make that. If you live in Tampa, if you live in Jacksonville, if you live in Orlando, if you live in South Florida somewhere and you're a big Gator and you got a couple kids and you work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and the kids are going to have school Friday morning, how are you supposed to make a Thursday night at 7 or whenever it kicked off work? For TV, it probably is better, but I understand that. I think the spring game, I think it's more about attendance than it is TV personally.
Yeah, you want to go out and you want to see the club. You haven't seen them since, in the Gators case, since Thanksgiving.
And also, I mean, is our spring games on TV some huge moneymaker? I don't think they are. So I don't think there's huge money at stake here for the networks. Just make it on a Saturday when big Gator fans and their families can make it. I
get Florida's idea. They wanted it to be on TV Thursday night, recruiting efforts and all that. I don't really know if it worked or not, but regardless, 48,000, nice crowd. Let's get to the game. Everybody wants to talk about DJ Lagway, and we will, but certainly let's talk about the starting quarterback at the University of Florida, Graham Mertz. He's wearing a black non-contact jersey. It was what it was. The defense didn't have ill intentions towards any of the quarterbacks out there. So for what it was, a glorified scrimmage, what did you make of Graham Mertz's performance?
Something that always surprises me all of last year, and it didn't surprise me much because I saw it last year, but it sort of just reminded me. I always forget how Mertz is a little bit more mobile than I think we give him credit for.
Yeah.
He had that really nice pass. I think the first drive, where he had trouble right away, kind of got deep, scrambled a little bit to the right, and hit it to Eugene Wilson for a first down. It ended up being like a 15-yard gain. And kind of off-schedule plays like that, we got so used to Anthony Richardson just being this freak that could take it for 70, and Mertz obviously is not that. But I do think it's underrated how much he can make off-schedule plays. And like you said, he's in a black non-contact jersey, so how much can you really make of it when the defense can't actually hit you? But that was just the main thing. Is it was encouraging to remember, like, okay, if the play breaks down, it's not like Mertz is screwed. It's not like he can't do anything. The other big takeaway is number 3 is very good at football.
Wilson, yeah. He's going to be a good player.
And I think what I saw in the spring, which was honestly one of the maybe the number 2 thing I wanted to see in the spring game besides Lagway that I was the most excited to watch, was how much Eugene Wilson was getting involved in the downfield passing game. Right? He got the ball a bunch last year. Toward the end of last year, he was getting downfield on routes a little more, but a lot of his touches last year, while they were impressive because he's so explosive, were a lot of gadget plays, jet sweep type of things, and not deep routes. But with his speed, man, if he and Mertz can really get this down 15 yards and further down the field, which I saw a little bit of in the spring game, that can be a really, really dangerous combination as long as Mertz is protected.
Couple of things with Mertz. It was a TV interview, so I don't want to read too much into it, but I've talked to a lot of people in Gainesville over the last couple of weeks during spring ball, and they basically said the same thing. He's got a calmness about him. He's got a relaxed vibe about him.
Well, I would hope so. He's been in college
He's been in college. He knows it. Well, my point is he knows it's his team. This is his football team. There's no pressure on him about DJ Lagway coming in and taking his job. And there shouldn't be. Lagway is a true freshman. Will Lagway get in from time to time? Sure. But if healthy, this is Graham Mertz's football team. And to me, I could sense that in the TV interview he did with Chris Doering and the ESPN3 staff and other conversations I've had with people down in Gainesville. So that's Graham Mertz. Now, DJ Lagway is the guy everybody wanted to see. A lot of good, right? A lot of good. He did have the one interception, which he'll learn from, certainly. Again, nobody was hitting him, so you got to take that for what it is. But same question, other than Mertz, what did you see out of Lagway?
I liked him. I heard kind of some rumblings in the spring ball that maybe his arm wasn't quite up to college speed yet, but I didn't really get that sense when he played. I was like, I'm watching the game, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell everybody else is talking about because his arm looks pretty damn good, dude. There's certain guys, Hack, that, and you know this as well as anybody. You've been watching these games and watching spring games and high school kids coming up into college for forever. There's certain guys, man, where it takes them time to physically get up to speed to be in college. And there's other guys that just day one, they just belong. And he's that guy. He just belongs. And, you know, he had the picture. I mean, you know, Graham Mertz is going to throw picks this year, right? And he's been in college for how long? I don't really care about honestly, in this time of year, in a spring game type of setting, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago now, Jaden Daniels had like this like streak where he hadn't thrown an interception for like over a month. Mm-hmm. And Brian Kelly was like angry about the fact that he hadn't thrown a pick. Because like the media was gassing him up for it and all this, and Brian Kelly was like, no, if he takes risks and goes off the timing of our offense, he might throw a few more picks, but it'll unlock so many things. So with Lagway, bring that back to the Gators. If Lagway is making some mistakes right now, throwing some picks, he and especially the young receivers are off a little bit on timing, that's okay, man. He's got to get through those learning curves to be able to, I think, unlock the true potential whenever he does get into the game.
Yeah, he had 15 spring practices, so and that stuff's going to happen. You talk about looking the part. Couple of freshmen other than Lagway stood out. LJ McCray is the 5-star from Daytona Beach Mainland on the defensive line. I saw him briefly in the state title game when they beat St. Augustine. I've seen a lot of tape on him. I've talked to him a handful of times. I've never actually just seen him compared to every other player on the field, and he's 18 years old. He's a true freshman. He looks like a junior or a senior out there. That fact that he is a true freshman who should really be a senior in high school, he's an early enrollee, dude. That guy, there is massive potential with LJ McCray. And then Jaden Baugh, the running back, was a guy in the recruiting class that did not get a lot of talk. I mean, he got some talk, but it was Lagway, McCray, Miles Graham, all those other guys. Baugh was originally an Arkansas commit, changed from Arkansas, and it went down to the wire between Alabama and Florida. I mean, it was a battle between the Crimson Tide and the Gators to the very end. Florida ends up getting him. So aside from Lagway, McCray on defense, Baugh on offense, two other freshmen to me that really stood out.
I'll start with Baugh. Biggest and most pleasant surprise of the whole spring game is Jaden Baugh, correct?
Yes.
And not even close, right?
Yeah, I would say it's not even close.
Dude, that first run he had, like that first big run, he was on Lagway's team. They're in the shotgun from left to right, getting the handoff. Burst. I was like, dude, like that's burst, man. And I don't want to compare him yet because this guy has had a really good 2 years of college football so far, and probably will again in Athens this year. But it was not dissimilar from Trevor Etienne's first year, where in space it's a little different from the other dudes. And
and we're all guilty of this as college fans or recruiting fans. You hear Arkansas commitment. And there's nothing wrong with Arkansas, right? He just had a strong relationship.
Yeah, but you're like, whatever.
But right, you see, all right, we flipped an Arkansas guy. Well, Alabama was in on him to the very end as well after he decommitted from Arkansas. So you got to be careful when you have preconceived notions about guys.
If he had been a Georgia commit,
right,
the whole fan base would be doing backflips.
Yes.
So yeah, most pleasant surprise of the spring game, and really, really, really encouraged about Baugh. Who knows, man? We could be looking up a month into the season, and Montrell and Baugh could be a really nice 1-2 duo.
And I don't get me wrong, I hope that's the case, but I hope Trayon Webb gets some action as well.
I do too.
I'm biased there, Trayon. I did a lot of stuff with him when he was in high school, interviews and such, and I really am a big fan of Trayon Webb.
Oh yeah, likewise. And when he got it, he didn't get a ton of reps last year, but when he got in, he was good.
Yeah,
he was a good player, and most of his reps were against cupcake teams, but when he did play, it was very strong and solid. I think Florida's got a really strong stable of backs. They're very deep. They got I know they lost Trevor, who was their biggest ceiling upside guy, their biggest home run hitter guy, which sucks to lose him, but I mean, they got like 4 guys that I'm comfortable with playing in a meaningful game.
You got Montrell Johnson, Trayon Webb, Jaden Baugh, Katie Daniels. We haven't even talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
He was the probably more highly acclaimed freshman coming in. Cam Carroll's coming off an ACL. Yep. The big
and they were really excited about Cam Carroll last year.
Yeah, so they got dudes in that running back room.
There's no way they're not going to have 2 to 3 backs throughout the season that can play and can make plays and be really strong. And I'll tell you this, man, especially that first half of the season, because we've looked at the schedule, we've gone through this. For Billy Napier to stay around this time next year, they gotta almost go undefeated before the cocktail party. And if they have a stable of backs that are running the ball effectively, I like their chances a hell of a lot more. If Jaden Baugh is doing well, if Montrell Johnson's doing well, maybe Cam Carroll's having some nice carries, maybe Webb. If they got like two to maybe 3 guys, and they're getting 150 yards a game, something like that, and the running game can be relied on, then I really like their chances against UCF, Kentucky, and
Mississippi State,
and all those teams.
Miami, A&M.
And it happened in certain games last year, especially against more formidable opponents. If they're getting stuffed, 1 yard, -1 yard, 2 yards, then I don't like their chances as much. The other side of the ball, you talked about LJ McCray. Look, man, there's a reason the teams that pick up the most 5-stars win the most football games. I mean, like for the longest time with Florida, we've always just said, like, why isn't the roster as good? Why isn't the roster up to speed with these other schools? Why does Georgia just look like a different team? Why does Florida look like they don't even belong on the same field? It's because Georgia, the last few years, has had 11 LJ McCrays on the field.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Point.
And to have somebody that stands out like that and is clearly a dude that the NFL is going to be interested in a few years, is clearly a dude that is just a man among boys, it's really nice to have him back in orange and blue for once.
No, I like it. The good thing is the D-line, TJ Searcy, Kelby Collins, Cameron Jackson, LJ McCray.
It's a good D-line.
Guys.
I'm excited about the D-line.
There's potential. Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. For the highest quality care, you can rely on Southeast Orthopedic Specialist for any orthopedic injury or concern. You can log on to their website by going to se-ortho.com, and you can listen for Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, the good doctor, Kevin Murphy, on Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour with Jeff and Dan right here on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in sports, along with Southeast Orthopedic Specialist Graham, the good folks over at George Moore Chevrolet.
Buy a car at Chevrolet. Buy a truck. That's what Denny does. When he's in the seat, he just says, yeah, man, go buy a truck.
They've been around forever.
That's what I do. They've been around forever. They've been around almost as long as Hack's piece of paper.
Yeah.
George Moore saw one of the guys at George Moore. I'm forgetting his name currently. I apologize. But he was out at the Guggen on Monday. Did the dizzy bat.
Oh,
the jumbo shrimp thing. So it was really funny. Yeah, he had a nice drive even after the dizzy bat. I was impressed. He had two full swirls and then a great shot. We got it on Instagram and everything. It was great.
That's what it's all about.
George Moore gang is all about the content. We appreciate you guys.
All right. So quickly, because there are a couple of things I want to hit on as we begin to wrap up. The offensive line is only going to, the running game is only going to be as good as the offensive line. And this sounds kind of stupid to say, but it's kind of the way I felt. Again, in a glorified practice. That looked like an SEC offensive line, at least the starters, when that hasn't been the case necessarily the last couple of years.
You know,
some of those transfers looked like dudes.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't look like an offensive line. Not being able to snap the ball where the center snaps it on time and the other four linemen react at the appropriate time, and not having to go multiple plays before you can actually get the ball off and run a play. That doesn't look like an SEC offensive line to me. Those procedural things that, knock on wood, they didn't look as bad, other than the special teams thing was horrendous, but that's not what we're talking about right now. At least offensively, procedurally, I mean, look, man, if they can't get it together this year in terms of those types of things, illegal formations, delay of games, that type of thing, and a big part of it is that line, when you've got experienced linemen, some guys out of the portal, you've got a quarterback that is a returning starter and has been in college for forever, they're never going to figure it out. So I agree with you. It looked much better. And I think a realistic expectation for this offense is to see that offensive line. There's no Osiris Torrance on this line, but to see that offensive line return a little bit closer to the 2022 form, where they're one of the best running teams in the SEC in 2022. You had to factor in Anthony Richardson, of course. But if that offensive line can get more push, it's like we were just talking about a minute ago, man. If they can really allow for these backs to get going a little bit in these games, especially early in the season, then I don't think it's crazy to expect them to be 4-1 or something like that, or have a good record by the time they hit the cocktail party.
So here's the thing, all right, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, but the reality is April in college football is the month of hope.
It is.
Everybody. 100%. Knoxville, Fayetteville, Auburn, Tuscaloosa, Starkville, you name it. Everybody is hopeful coming out of spring football. Gainesville, Jacksonville. Reality comes in September, or maybe in the Gators' case, late August. I would be stunned if they're 4-1. Stunned.
Who are their first 5 games?
Miami,
Samford,
okay. Texas A&M. Then I think it's Mississippi State, and either Kentucky or Tennessee.
They're not beating Tennessee, I don't think.
Are you going to beat Miami and Texas A&M? I think you split those, and I would take that.
Let me double check if the 5th game is Kentucky or Tennessee,
because
that will determine.
And by the way, going to Starkville, do you think that's going to be easy with Mississippi State?
No, I don't.
No, it's not. I just.
But my whole point was it will be a hell of a lot easier if they can run the ball effectively.
Right. No, and I get it. And I get it. And then coming out of spring, people are, I'm hearing 8-4, 9-3. Let me tell you this: if Billy Napier goes 8-4 with this schedule, he should be SEC Coach of the Year.
The 5th game is UCF.
Oh, UCF. Okay, so you got Tennessee, and then Kentucky, and then Tennessee?
After UCF, at Tennessee, and then Kentucky comes to Gainesville. So I think, you got Miami, Samford, Texas A&M, Florida, or Mississippi State, UCF. That's first 5.
Yeah.
You know what? Been negative all off season, was negative at the end of last year. It's time to sip some Kool-Aid. 4-1 Gators after the first 5 games. 4-1, I'm in.
Who do they lose to?
They lose at Mississippi State.
You think they beat Miami and Texas A&M?
Yes, because they're both in Gainesville.
No, that mattered a lot last year.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have any big
No,
wins. No, they beat Tennessee at home. It mattered at
Arkansas came in and beat them. Florida State came in and beat them with a backup quarterback.
Look, Hack, I gotta have the hope. I know it's the offseason to hope. I know I'm drinking Kool-Aid. I'm drinking orange and blue Kool-Aid right now, but I just got to do it, man.
Well, you have to have the hope early in the year because there's no hope at the end of the year. None.
Yeah.
Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. It's gonna be very little hope.
Well, we've already talked about this before. If those first 5 and you lump in Tennessee and Kentucky, so those first 7, dude, if they're not 5-2, and I don't think when I'm being more realistic with myself, I'm not sure they're gonna be like 5-2 or 6-1 or whatever. Dude, if they're not, Billy Napier will not be the coach a year from now. It just will not happen. Because let's say through the first 7, they're 4-3.
Yeah.
And then you got the cocktail party. They're probably not going to win again.
Well, they're not going to be the favorite to win again. I'm not so sure to jump the gun that Napier won't be back. I think people are realistic. Even Gator fans, and that is a bold statement. I think this year Gator fans are realistic. I think they know what this schedule is. It's the hardest schedule I can remember in 35 years. I'm 40 now. I remember I was 6 years old in 1990. That's about as far back as the memory banks go. And in all that time, it is the hardest schedule I can ever remember on paper. Now, sometimes schedules in April don't materialize to be as hard in September and October. And for the Gators' case, I certainly hope that's the instance this year.
Maybe A&M's no good.
Right.
Maybe
but
Florida State is not as good as we.
All we can do is go on paper right now. And like ESPN.com did their way too early top 25 about a month ago. 9 of the Gator opponents were on that thing.
Oh, my God.
9. It is the hardest schedule in college football, bar none, in 2024. And I think arguably it's the hardest schedule in the history of Florida football. But having said that, I think Gator fans know that. And look, if they go 3-9, Napier's probably gone. All right, I'm not saying that. If they go 4-8, he's probably gone. 6-6, dare I say 5-7, for the first time in a long time. Do I think Gator fans and Gator boosters might understand a little bit more than they normally do? Some will be mad. Those on social media will be mad, and you'll have your keyboard tough guys. But I think people will realize what Florida is up against in 2024.
I just think...
And you can't keep resetting the clock, man. We've talked about this. Why is Florida where they are? Because you've had like 7 coaches since Spurrier. If you fire Napier, that'll be 7 coaches in 21 years.
See, I think this is where we disagree on this topic because... Like, we say, why is Florida where they are? Is that why? Because if that is why, if you're saying that's why, that the reason Florida's where they're at is because they fire coaches too quickly, then
they definitely fire coaches too quickly.
Then that has to mean, though, and I think you do, but I'm just talking about a lot of the fan base. At least one of those coaches you have to believe was fired too quickly.
Okay, Dan Mullen was fired too quickly.
And I know you've said that before, and I think that's probably the most fair argument. That one I'm willing to listen to, but my problem is...
I think you could argue, I would at least sit down and have a conversation with you that Will Muschamp was fired too quickly.
He was there for 4 years.
He went 12-1 one of those years.
That was the first year.
That was the second year.
Oh, second year. Sorry. You're right. He
was 2 years removed from 12-1, and they canned him.
But they also lost to Georgia Southern at home, man.
Well, I get it, but, I mean, you're 12-1, and you're fired 2 calendar years later?
But, so my thing more so is less with you because I think you actually believe these arguments that you're making, and I think you actually think Muschamp might have been fired too early. You actually think Mullen might have been fired too early.
I didn't, and I said Mullen for sure. I said Muschamp, I'd have a conversation with you.
But yeah. I hear what you're saying. So I don't have an issue with you taking that stance because you actually have an argument in place for it. My problem is I think a lot of the people that say that in Gator Nation were screaming to fire Mullen when they did fire him.
Those same people were screaming to fire Napier after 2 years.
Right, exactly.
Which that is, it's the definition of insanity.
And my problem is if you're going to say both of those things, if you're going to every time a few years in, things are struggling, you're going to scream to fire the coach, but then you're also going to say, we fire coaches too quickly. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Sure you are.
You are not doing that. I'm just saying, I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people that are sitting here right now saying, Flores fires coaches way too quickly. Okay, that's fine, but in 2021, you better not have been screaming to fire Dan
Now,
Mullen.
here's the thing. All right, Napier goes 6-7 in year one, right? Because they didn't even care about the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Go 5-7, don't even get to a bowl game year two. Obviously, that's a regression. If you could regress again, this is a different conversation. If you're 3-9 or 4-8, and you've gone down in wins for 3 consecutive years, then we need to talk.
Yeah.
But 6-6 in a bowl game with this schedule, or dare I say 7-5 in a bowl game with this schedule, that's an incredible job. And I'll say if he's 8-4, he should be coach of the year.
If they went 7-5 or better, that means before Georgia, because they have 7 games before Georgia, they probably need to be 6-1 at worst.
Yeah, 6-1 or 5-2. At 5-2 at absolute worst, and then you hope to get 1 or 2 on the back end. You hope to get Ole Miss on a bad day in Gainesville, or you hope to circle the wagons against Florida State. By the way, I didn't realize this. I was talking to Ira Schofel of warchant.com on Hacker After Dark. You know, Florida State's renovating Doak Campbell. There's only going to be 55,000 seats there this year. They basically took down like half the stadium.
I didn't know it was that.
Yeah, he thinks the capacity is going to be like 55. So Gator fans, if you normally go to Tallahassee, it's going to be a hard ticket this year because 20,000 of those seats are not going to be available.
Well, Florida's like their only good home game too though, isn't it?
It's a bad home schedule for the Noles.
It's terrible because they play at Miami this year.
Yeah, no, they get Clemson in Tallahassee.
That's right. You're right.
But
they
still,
they do.
But anyway, nevertheless, just throwing that out there. But that's a tough schedule. But I think the point is, you're a Gator alum. My family has bled orange and blue before I was alive. I'm now, of course, an objective broadcast journalist every night here on 1010XL.
And so am I. That's why I'm wearing a Gator
with the
shirt.
Gator logo. I think we understand how hard this schedule is. And I think most people out there watching and listening understand how hard this schedule is.
So I think so too. But we saw this last year.
In the heat of the moment, people will be pissed.
Yes.
That's
the thing. Like it's
but you have to take deep breaths and calm down after bad losses to whoever.
After Tennessee or somebody beats them, please,
I got
please
news
tell
for
all
you.
Gator Nation to take deep breaths.
I got news for you. Who's picking them to go to Knoxville and win this year, based on what they did at Tennessee last year?
Not me.
Wrap your minds around this. Big Orange Country, the Volunteer Navy, they are going to be fired up for when the Gators go to Neyland Stadium.
Can we instill a renovation for Neyland Stadium
Right.
this year?
They're going to be smelling blood in the water. We got to go quick here. Actually, let's do this. Southeast Orthopedic Specialist makes this program possible. Gator Bytes, they've been with us for years. We love the folks over at Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. You can check out their website, se-ortho.com. They are the leading orthopedic center here in all of Northeast Florida. And, of course, George Moore Chevrolet.
You need a car, you need a truck, go to them.
All right, final thoughts. You saw the roster on Saturday. The portal is back open for a couple of weeks. Normally, the portal is not as active now as it is in December, but it is still active nevertheless. Positions that you think the Gators need to target over the next 10 to 14 days?
Denmark and I talked about this a few days ago on our pod.
Oh, the award-winning Denmark and Marsh podcast.
He said on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive line, he wants more beef up front.
I don't think that's ever a bad way to go. I think they need another receiver.
That's what I said. I said on defense, I said I agree. Defensive line. On offense, I would like, and this is more the type of guy you're probably looking at in this portal cycle, I would like a guy that even if it was at a smaller level school, I want a guy that's just caught a lot of passes in college. That'd be a guy I would like. Like a guy from Tulsa or Tulane or something is fine as long as they've played college football and they have experience. That's the one thing that this receiver room is lacking a bit, I think. You have Shimrade Dike. Did I pronounce it right?
Transfer from Wisconsin.
He's played a lot of college football, and Trey Wilson has a full season of experience under his belt. Khalil Jackson played a decent amount last year. But more than likely, you're going to really want to try to see what Andy G and Aiden Mizell have this year.
Marcus Burke.
And Marcus Burke, and none of them have played a whole lot at all. Marcus Burke's been on campus for, this is 4th year or 3rd year?
At least 3rd year. Maybe 4th.
I think it's his 4th.
Yeah.
I think his freshman year was Mullen's last year. I think he was a Mullen recruit.
And was he 2 years ahead of Trayon at Trinity Christian?
I think so.
Either way, he's an upperclassman.
But... Or it might have been, whatever. Either way, he's been on campus for a long time and still hasn't played all that much. I'm kind of shocked he hasn't transferred, to be honest. I'm glad he hasn't, but I was just kind of would have expected somebody like that to leave. But I just think there's a good chance you're going to be relying on multiple receivers that have not caught a ton of balls in college yet. So any way that you could just add a little experience to that room is what I would prefer if I could pick a position.
I agree. I like that. I think adding a guy with experience with a lot of catches, as you mentioned. Quickly as we wrap up, the basketball portal. Todd Golden was nothing short of sensational last year in the basketball portal. They've already added one, Sam Alexis from Chattanooga. He's an 11-point, 9-rebound guy, and he's 6'9".
And they added a high school recruit.
And a top 50 high school recruit.
What you got about Alexander Lloyd?
I know that he was offered by Dayton, Florida State, Miami, and he chose Florida.
Top 50, 247 guy.
Yeah, he chose the Gators over the Hurricanes and the Noles. But Sam Alexis is going to contribute next year.
Yep.
6'9", 230. You see what Todd Golden likes. He likes big men, man, because you're already assuming Thomas Houck's coming back. You're assuming Alex Condon's coming back. And you hope Micah Hanlockton comes back from injury. So you already got 3 6'9" guys on the team. Now, Sam Alexis will be the 4th 6'9" guy or taller on the team. We still don't know about Will Richard. The hope is he comes back. The more time that goes by, you expect him to come back. Everything I'm hearing out of Gainesville, even though Walter Clayton is testing the waters.
Well, Will Richard posted yesterday he's testing the waters as well.
Okay, Will Richard's testing the waters, but he's not going to hire an agent.
Correct.
Okay, so he's doing the same thing that
Which
Walter
means
Clayton's
he's
doing.
coming back.
Yeah, and Clayton did the same thing. So you've lost Kugel to the portal. You knew already that Pullen was gone and that Samuel was gone. But, man, if you bring back Richard and Clayton with Aberdeen in the backcourt, and then you have Hanlockton, Condon, Houck, you already had this transfer in Alexis, you get 1 or 2 more transfers, Florida's going to be pretty good again.
Does the dude that's like 7'6" or whatever come next year?
Yeah, I think he does too, yeah. But those guys,
That'll be more of a project type thing. But
and they need to, by the way, they already play they're playing North Carolina in the non-conference. I think that's in the Jumpman Invitational next year.
That's going to be a tough day for me.
Yeah, because your family's from that. Is your family from that part, or is it?
My entire mom's side is all from. They're all either Tar Heels or they're NC State Wolfpack.
Okay,
everybody lives in Charlotte.
But they're Golden scheduling a tough non-conference, which is good if you win a couple of those games.
Yeah, it's huge. I think this kind of. Golden's got a couple of different strategy things that he is clearly into that I like a lot. First, he, I think, has achieved what, honestly, not a lot of coaches have achieved so far as this portal thing and NIL thing has developed more. There is, I believe, UConn's obviously achieved like the perfect mix, but there is, I believe, a good hybrid of transfer high school recruits. And in basketball, you really have to master the balance because there's just far less players. It's not as much like football, where football we just got to take everybody that's talented. But basketball, like, it's that mix of like, okay, I don't want to completely abandon high school. Like, I want to get at least 1 to 2 talented high ceiling freshman guys year in, year out. But probably the rest of the roster is going to be portal guys, right? And
it's a day and age of college basketball. It's where
correct.
We all
and
are.
Golden has dove headfirst into that, which I really like out of him. And then also within that is he has, and this was such an advantage for Florida this past year, and he's clearly trying to keep that momentum going. He has like 3 to 4 bigs that can play. And with how quickly bigs accumulate fouls, it's huge to have that depth and guys that can play a lot more free and very rarely feel like they can't really play defense. And then they got bigs that can score and move.
Yeah,
Hanlockton's not that guy, but Samuel was, and Condon was. You get Condon back. Alexis, I think, should be that guy, kind of the Samuel replacement.
11 points, 9 rebounds on average at Chattanooga. I'll take that.
And man, I'm sure that you can attest to this. This year, and we talked about this before the basketball season, with all these transfer guys, like, you got to pull out a roster and study up who's on the team before the first couple games, because it's not like the old days where there's continuity. The first thing I noticed with the first game I watched this year was how tall they are.
Mm-hmm.
They just looked so much bigger than they had looked in the past couple of years, and that manifested itself all throughout the season. They were the best offensive rebounding team like all season.
We got to go quick here, but I'll tell you this. Did you see who entered the portal from Alabama?
No, I didn't.
Walters, who's
Really?
originally from Gainesville. So that caught my eye. Now, again, that may mean nothing, but that guy was very good for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
So keep your eye on that, because if I'm Todd Golden, I'm putting a lot of chips in the center of the table to try to get him in, because he was a
100%.
very good player from a team that went to the Final Four. He is Graham Marsh. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. This has been Gator Bytes on 1010XL.com and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Thank you to Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. Thank you to George Moore Chevrolet. We'll be back a couple of weeks and do it all over again. Gator Bytes, 1010XL.com.